all. Many of you I've met and others for the first time, so nice to meet you. And thanks for your introduction. That's maybe the main thing. I'm the founder of a company called CELL Institute, and we started working with the IHF and the Geneva Sustainability Center 3.5 years ago on the development of CELL. We completed it 3 years ago. And as a company, we have started to use new tools for development of new simulations. And about 9 months ago, we decided together that that would also be an opportunity to redevelop CELL. So that's what we'll be sharing today. Essentially the CELL that you know, but in a new tool with a few small enhanced functionalities. I'm based in Dubai, usually, and currently I am in Paris. So shall I just open the screen, Maya, and tell people what it looks like? And there's another person joining the session, Marco.
Hi.
Hello, Marco.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry I'm late. Don't worry all.
Very well, thank you, Marco. We've just started on the presentation. We're just recording this for those who couldn't make it, and we'll have a chat at the end. Lovely to see you.
Great, thank you.
Great. So you should be able to see the new version of CELL at the moment. Before I highlight the differences, let me tell you what has not changed. None of the decisions have changed. The feedback statements haven't changed. The model impacts haven't changed. The dashboard hasn't changed. So it is essentially still the same simulation. We think it's got a fresher look now. Let me see if I can easily switch between the two. Can you see that, Maya, now, the switching between the old and the new?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So now I switch back to the new. We think it all looks a little bit more appealing than before, although the old one looked good. And also maybe from, let's say, a software engine perspective, this new version is a little bit easier to maintain, also to translate if we would want to. So if there are future enhancements that we want to make, it should all become easier. But in terms of what is actually different between the, let's call it the new version and the old version, one main thing is the administration of teams. In the old version, the facilitator would put people into teams and then also decide within a team who's an advisor and who's a decision maker. In the new version, what happens is what you see here. You are currently playing as a team member. You can see all of your the team members here on the top right, and in this case they're called Demo 1 and Demo 2. And at the start, everybody sees the screen and nobody can actually enter decisions. If you see here, it's all grayed out. So then as a team, you want to enter decisions. What do you need to do? Well, the only thing that needs to happen is one person needs to click this button and become decision maker. And at that moment, that person can enter decisions on behalf of the team. And now, and this is a difference from the old CELL, every other team member has that red button become decision maker available. So they can take that power and enter decisions on behalf of the team. So you're no longer dependent on the decision maker being online. If that person for some reason has, dropped out, then anybody else in the team can take over the decision-making power and add decisions for the team. If you start a new run, then again, you see the button becoming available. So this is one major change. I will show you in a minute what that looks like from the facilitator perspective. Then a second, I think, important addition is that learners can now view their own runs of the simulation in this View Runs button. That is only shown between games. so that people don't get distracted in the middle of the game. So at the beginning or the end of your run, you can see the view runs, and it looks a lot like the leaderboard that the facilitator has available that you're familiar with. And just like in the leaderboard, students or learners can view on their click view and then enter the simulation. And this run is actually finished. So you'll be familiar with all of this. And then the simulation summary, it's the same as before. I think it looks a little bit more appealing even now. But people always have this available for their own record. So then I can just go back to the simulation. And now, for example, if I click Start and I begin towards moving decisions, at some point then the view runs will disappear. Good. These are functional issues in terms of the layout. Here you see now that these tabs on top have become arrows, so it's more clear that you move from left to right as you progress the simulation. And here, perhaps you remember, it used to mention the name of the page that you're navigating towards, but now it simply says next. So it's clear to people that they are expected to go next each time, and then you don't get lost. Then another minor change on the dashboard page, if I proceed, and now, by the way, you see that view runs has disappeared, so I'm no longer distracted by it. On the dashboard page, we have 3 subtabs, consumption, emissions, and then the third one used to be called Other, and it has been renamed Hospital Performance. So these are all the changes on the learner interface side. And as I've shown these to you, at the same time, I think you got a feel for the new look and feel. So let me stop share and see if there's any questions or comments, and then at the same time I open the facilitator interface.
And you're welcome to throw comments and questions in the chat or throw it out into the ether and let us know.
Okay, then for the facilitator interface, I think there's just 2 points to highlight. Just making sure. Oh, sorry, I just clicked the button by accident. Just want to make sure that I'm going to be in the right page. And that right page is here. So I described to you the ways to allocate people into teams, and that has now been simplified a little bit. Of course, the simulation needs to be closed if I move people from one team to the other, so that I'm not able to move somebody while they're just about to make a decision. So I will close the simulation to learners. I go to assign users, and here I can do things in 2 ways or even in 2 steps if I wish. I can say, okay, put let's say 3 users per team, click assign users. Now everybody is put in the same team. And then if I want to make manual adjustments, then I can click on one user and move that person to a different team manually. And I can do this as many times as I like. So that's for the team assignment. And you will see nobody is called decision maker or not decision maker. That's all within the team players to organize easily by themselves. And then we've had a lot of learners who see their results, and they would like to know in a discrete way how they compare to the rest of the group. And that is now available in this class summary that the facilitator may show or may not show, depending on your preferences. And here you see, of course, the main performance criterion is reduction in emissions. You see here the average, you see here the highest score and the lowest score. I mean, there's only 2 runs now of games that have been completed, but you can imagine a higher number there. And there you see then also the class average for 2 other important performance measures, the cumulative emissions and changing annual cost. And imagine that you have a very large class and people say, oh, but my game isn't comparable to somebody else's, because of location. Then you can also sort it on location. But if there's no completed runs, then it will not show anything. And you can have also games of different duration. Because maybe people say, well, these people had longer to complete the game than I did. So you can always make sure that you're comparing apples with apples. So people often like this, but if you don't want to show it, then you can just leave it like this. So everything else is basically the same. So let me maybe stop sharing and then see with anybody else, what are comments and questions we can discuss.
I have a question. I like the comparative slide that you just showed, or view that you just showed. I was curious if does the tool track like all users? Like I was curious if you knew what the average reduction is for everybody who's used the tool, not just in our class, but like all users. That might be an interesting data point for any given group to know.
Yes. So we don't have that easily available, but with some work, we can get to it. And I think, when CELL was about 1.5 years old, we did put all the old games in a database. So we have that, and we could add to that database. And then, indeed, we could think about what are average scores. But what might also be interesting is, are there consistent good initiatives that people don't adopt, or consistent bad initiatives that people keep on going for? That kind of insight would be good. But your question, with a bit of effort, definitely we can come to that.
Great question, Christina. Now, Marco, I appreciate that you joined in, but it was just at the beginning, so your timing was actually quite perfect. So we are recording this session, but did you have any questions that you wanted to ask, having facilitated this previously?
Not yet. Actually, I think I need to see these details in practice to see if I have a new question. But so far, it looks easy to play, and I like the view. So, and you can compare, and you can see all the people who are in the team. I think this is a good new settings. Yeah.
Thanks, Marco. And the other thing to highlight too is that the facilitators manual has been updated, so all of those changes are highlighted there. Erland, yes.
Yes, thank you for this update. I like both the slight refresh and the new way of arranging teams, etc. that you went through. I have a question about if you want to adapt the simulation to a local context. I understand there's 2 ways of doing it. One way is to put in some data points sort of after you've to adapt the local simulation, but I think it can be done also structurally in a way to make a specific venue available to others who run the simulation. Is there a big difference in how these are done?
Well, for now, the way to do it is to let people choose their location. And every location has different characteristics. And that is part of the learning, actually. But I'm not sure what you mean then by the other method.
Now, what I would like to do is to create a local context which is more similar to, say, a hospital or two in Norway, and to find out which data points would we need to do that. And if so, could I get those data points and put them into the simulation to say have hospital or Bergen or Tromsø available in the simulation?
Okay, yeah, so that is a bit tricky, and I think we need to discuss then through the IHF how best to do that. But then, you know, if you have significant number of users, then it could be done by setting up a specific instance of the simulation.
I wonder,
Yeah.
I wonder,
go ahead.
Tim, if you bring up the settings in the facilitator mode, and there's a whole list of characteristics, and I'm wondering, Ellen, if that's what you're referring to in terms of, you know, adapting this one a little bit more and this one a little bit less. Are you looking for guidance on what those characteristics may be? Because now, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, or Aditi, because I know you were involved in the development as well, is that for each of the cities that is already kind of programmed in, that was done based on a whole range of research and indicators separately sourced, as opposed to a neat census type result that you could tabularize
Yes.
and insert. Is that correct, Tim?
Yes. So, how to say this? The cities that you can choose from, they all have their own characteristics. And yeah, I just need to, I'm actually a little bit struggling on the new settings, but I'll need to get back to you with how that works in the new settings. But what you can do, oh, here it is. Okay, sorry. My apologies. I was just looking for something that I couldn't find, but here it is. So, Erland, sorry, I think you're referring to this. So if you say you don't allow the student a choice of location, but you set it as a facilitator, then one of the things that you can do is you can click on My Town, and then you can give it a name. So that will be the city that becomes visible to people. It will not be called My Town, it will be called Bergen. And then here you can change the main model parameters as per Bergen. So this is what the facilitator can do. And then if you would want something tailored in greater detail than that, then it would be a separate instance.
So can I just confirm then, Tim, anybody who is a facilitator can look at their local town/country and pull this information from whatever local sources that they have available and make those adjustments. Is that correct? Exactly.
And I've done this many times also for a similar simulation that we run, and there are a few items that are relatively easy to get that make the biggest difference. And these are, of course, the price of electricity from the grid and the emissions from electricity of the grid. So, and then other ones are important, but less important, and sometimes are more difficult to get accurate data for. The one that I'm often struggling with is the carbon footprint of water. But yes, is the answer, Maya.
And Ian has put an excellent question in the chat. It would also be interesting to see regional or country-specific averages and or insights on what implementations were selected. Would be fascinating and definitely spur some international competition. I feel the Carbon Emissions Learning Lab cup, you know, coming right up. Time-specific international competition and see how we go. Great idea, Ian. But coming back, Tim, to the those different parameters and building on that just a little bit, are there any elements that it's absolutely critical to not leave out? So, for example, if we pick my town and we answer at least the first, I think, 5 or 6 questions, then the rest of the simulation should be okay? Or do we, you know, are there parameters that if you don't have them available, you can leave them out and the simulation will still function as effectively as it does with the pre-programmed settings?
Yes. So I think there's a simple answer to this, which is that the carbon footprint of electricity and the price of electricity need to be entered, and they're easy to get. So if you do these, then if you have to, then the rest you can leave at more default settings.
That's great to know. Thank you, Tim. Does anyone else have any questions? Or Tim, are there any other elements that you feel it would be valuable for facilitators to be aware of? Because I know some organisations are already using the new version. So far, so good. So this is really just for those that haven't had a look yet. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Well, now that we had this discussion about the different locations, let me just share with you also the teaching note, and I would recommend for people to work with the teaching note and work with it as a reference document. So can I just confirm you can see the table here on the PDF? Yeah. So referring back to your question here, you see 6 locations in the game, and you can see the, let's say, main model parameters for each one. And that's a nice learning point, I think. If you look at, for example, the emission factor of water, you know, you can explain to people how in locations like Dubai and Singapore, where a lot of water comes from desalination, water savings have a big impact on your emissions. And then the emission factor of electricity is the key point that I mentioned that you should localize if you are doing any localization at all. And these really show the big differences. So this is a useful table, and just to sort of plug the teaching note, the facility manual, what's good about it is that you see here the contents page, and then you can click on a topic of your interest and it takes you straight there. There's no need to read the whole thing.
Thank you so much, Tim. And that's actually a really good point because, and I'll just pop it in the chat for anyone, Tim's recently published a Harvard article around the debrief, and it provides some tips. It's a super quick read, super practical, and I would encourage you to have a look at that also.
Great. Yeah, then I would just reinforce that, Maya. Thank you for that. That, you know, if you think about facilitation as brief, play, and debrief, often people know what to do during the brief, right? They explain the game and how it works. During the play, they should stay in the background as much as possible. And then the debrief is a space where, you know, learning happens and gets consolidated. And I've seen sometimes people have difficulty structuring that part. And then as a result, sometimes they don't pay enough attention to it. They make it like, you know, a 7-minute discussion, but it could be much better and more than that. So that article that Maya is sharing is designed to help with that.
Thanks, Tim. And I probably also should have mentioned at the beginning that Tim doesn't just do the development work, he actually also lectures in educating with simulations. So it's not just the product, but it's also the integration of the product into a more fulsome learning program. But Erland.
And just to say quickly, thank you for pointing to that article. I'll be looking into it because when I ran this course or used CELL with medical students, in feedback we collected, they highlighted the need for a good debrief to solidify the learning. So I think this sounds really useful. Thank you.
No problem. Well, if there are no further questions, I'm happy to close out the recording, which I will do as we speak. And what we can then do